the power fantasy that Doom 2016 hands the player is entertaining, the power fantasy that is earned through combat mastery is eternal. Doom Eternal is a daunting game to talk about, not because it's bad or anything, but there's just so much to this game. In fact, Doom Eternal is my favourite Doom game aside from the original Doom, which will always be in my top spot for obvious reasons. Doom Eternal took around 4 years to make, and you can see the time that went into this game. From Doom 2016 to Doom Eternal, it feels like two drastically different games, and although I like Doom 2016 a lot, it doesn't hold a candle to Doom Eternal in my opinion. Doom Eternal took everything that Doom 2016 had and built upon it significantly, and I'm more than happy to discuss that today. The opening cutscene of Doom Eternal gets the heart pumping and immediately makes the player feel powerful without even doing anything. Mick Gordon's soundtrack is superb, and his remix of E1M1 during the intro cinematic is one of my favourite tracks in the game. So there are more story elements in Doom this time around, and one of the most divisive additions are the third-person cutscenes. Doom 2016 had very lean storytelling, aside from the moments where you just stood in place while a character blabbered to you, but Doom Eternal wants to build out its lore, and I respect that. I don't have an issue with these cutscenes being third person, or that there's more of a focus on story. You can skip every cutscene if you want, and if you're just looking to blow up demons, you can. However, what I will say about the story is that it's pretty out there and comic book-esque. I'm not an expert on Doom Eternal lore, but from what I understand, it's a little convoluted. The basics are that the Doom Slayer is OG Doom Guy. He was brought in by the Night Sentinels to fight Hell's forces after the events of Doom 64. An alien race known as the Makers invade other planets to secure their Argent energy supply. In order for their civilization to survive, they work with Hell to try and conquer Earth, and that's where the Doom Slayer steps in. I think we needed more than 2 games to explain all of this, and as I said, it's a bit daunting compared to the story that was told in Doom 2016, but whatever. If you're into the story, that's great, and I'm not saying I dislike it or anything, it's just not something I've delved into that much, but I do plan on it. What I will say is that all of the cutscenes make the player feel like a badass, since the Doom Slayer is either doing something awesome, or he's just looking like a badass. The first level is Hell on Earth, and to me, this is one of the more challenging parts of the game, ironically. The opening couple of hours of Doom Eternal can be somewhat overwhelming with all of the game's new mechanics and tools, but you still have fun along the way. One of the key alterations is how the chainsaw functions and Doom Eternal's focus on resource management. The chainsaw is given to you in the first area of the game, charges up 1 fuel over time, and you'll need to use it a lot more to grab ammo back from enemies. Id Software doubles down on resource management, and I really love it. Glory kills give you health back, the Flame Belch, which is a new item that lights enemies on fire, gives you armor, and the chainsaw gives you ammo. Giving players the ability to get their health, armor, and ammo back by themselves makes them constantly think about what to do next, and it's brilliant. That being said, there are health pickups and equipment around, especially in the first level, for those who don't have a good grasp on the new mechanics yet. The updated combat mechanics and enemy patterns are the 2 most crucial new elements in Doom Eternal, so let's go ahead and jump in. One of the flaws with Doom 2016 is that the super shotgun was basically your solution to everything. The game didn't incentivize you enough to switch weapons, as the enemies could be weakened and killed with the same gun over and over. I highlighted this in my previous video, but Doom Eternal rectifies this and pushes players into the fun zone, where you need to weapon switch and think more about what you're doing. The fun zone is a term thrown around at id Software during development, and it's basically a list of activities that the player does in their game to ensure that they're having fun. weapon switching, moving around the arena, thinking about their next move, etc. When I first heard about this fun zone in the Doom Eternal no-clip interview and how Hugo Martin talked about how they were coming up with new ways to get players to switch weapons, I was annoyed. I thought to myself, that ruins the creativity of the game, and Doom has always been about letting the player use whatever gun they want. I was an idiot, and it's no wonder why I'm not in game design. The most common way that Doom Eternal gets players to use most of the weapons is to refine Doom's chessboard. Instead of going up to the Mancubus with the super shotgun from point blank range and blasting him away, Doom Eternal's Mancubus has an extremely powerful blast when you get near him, so you need to maybe use a grenade to falter him and then hit him with the super shotgun. All of the enemies have wizened up in Doom Eternal and have a specific function in the arena, and that makes the player think about what weapon to use first. The Mancubus is just one example, thankfully. The Pain Elementals are like this heavy tank unit that throws lost souls at you, and while they aren't the most dangerous monster, they do give you another thing to worry about. The Cacodemon returns, but they are much more ferocious than Doom 2016. They rush towards you and try to bite the fuck out of you, but it can be staggered by popping one shotgun sticky bomb into its mouth. That's fucking badass. The Dread Knights are a new monster that have 2 energy blades and have similar properties to the Hell Knights, but they create more splash damage and are generally more dangerous. The Carcass might be one of the best new monsters in Doom Eternal as they put shields up in front of you, so if you're using the rocket launcher for instance, the rocket can blow up in your face with them around. I'll get into more of the monsters later, but I just wanted to note that the monsters have been refined and serve quite specific purposes in combats. Regardless, for the people that want to use any gun they want at any given time, that's not really how Doom works. Even going back to Doom 1 and Doom 2, each of the weapons had somewhat specific functions within combat, and Doom Eternal carries this over and enhances this gameplay elements. Let's use Doom 2 as our example, since it includes the super shotgun and all of the new monster types. So the normal shotgun is a good weapon to use, but it doesn't have a huge spread, and in tougher levels, you need something else to take care of the increased enemy counts. This is where the super shotgun comes in, and although it's great for taking out large groups of enemies, you can't snipe for shit since the bullets spray all over the place. The normal shotgun, on the other hand, is used quite a lot for sniping monsters from far away. One of the other downsides about the super shotgun is the reload time and how it doesn't really falter enemies well. The chain gun is excellent for fodder control, faltering enemies, and sniping when you tap the mouse button, not when you hold click and fire. I mean, look at this encounter with the Arachnotron. Most of the time, using the chain gun, he'll be continually in his pain state and can't do shit. The chain gun isn't the most powerful weapon though compared to the plasma rifle, but it's still pretty damn good for clearing out weaker enemies. The plasma rifle, as I said, is stronger than the chain gun and can take out the tougher enemies quicker, but it shares ammo with the BFG, so sometimes you need to make a choice about what weapon to use and at what times. As for the rocket launcher, it is an awesome weapon, but it is the greatest risk-reward in the game. It's very powerful and will kill most demons with only a couple of rockets, but that splash damage can be insane, so it's up to you on what you use. Something like Plutonia encourages rocket launcher use more with its open spaces and higher monster counts, but with, I don't know, Knee Deep in the Dead, with the abundance of corridors, it might not be the best gun to use. All of these little meta elements are from the original Doom games from the 90s, so how can anyone say that Doom Eternal flies against what Doom 1 and 2 stand for with its updated weapon mechanics? I have no idea, and even with that, Doom Eternal and Classic Doom don't exactly pigeonhole you to use all of your guns. Like, they don't fucking lock for keys or anything. They just provide plenty of incentive to switch. Another way that id Software pushes players into switching weapons is by decreasing the ammo counts, and while I think this was ultimately a good idea, I think it might be a little too low, but that's just me. As you will notice in the first level, the game is extremely colourful, and that's one of the best aspects about Doom Eternal. In Doom 2016, it had more of a grounded look, while Doom Eternal goes full comic book, and I think it's fantastic. This totally falls in line with classic Doom, and the Hell on Earth concept is fully realized after 20 fucking years. It's great to see. This is what a Doom game should look like in the new era of gaming, and I'm so glad that id Software is making Doom games like this. Hell on Earth gives you access to the combat shotgun right off the bat, as well as the double jump, which is always nice. Speaking of which, this level looks amazing, with a huge monster in the background and the flying cacodemons. However, the reliance on tutorials is one aspect I can kinda do without, but since Doom Eternal needs to teach you quite a lot compared to Doom 2016, I understand why this game is tutorial heavy at times. Thankfully, these tutorials come in the form of pop-ups most of the time, and there are in-game tutorials only once in a blue moon. The chainsaw has its own tutorial, for example, and I really appreciate how you just need to press the button once to use it, rather than bringing up the weapon with the button and then using the fire key to cut someone up like in Doom 2016. The one thing about the pop-ups I don't really like is how it tells you the weak points of the bosses, in which I think it's more fun to discover that for yourself. But whatever. The heavy cannon is also given to you in level 1, and it might be one of the most important guns in the game. Early on you were taught that most of the monsters have weak points, and using the precision bolt mod on the heavy cannon allows you to take them off instantly. Maker drones, arachnotrons, mancubi, pinkies, and revenants all have weak points that you can hit, and I fucking love this aspect about Doom Eternal. It gives you even more decisions to think about while in the middle of combat. Maybe you should disable the weak point of the Arachnotron so it's not too much of a threat anymore, in order to focus on the other heavy demons on the field. These weak points grant the game so much creativity, and it's one of the best new alterations to the combats. On top of these specific weak points, every monster has a weakness at least, like the shield zombies with the plasma rifle or blood punch. This makes the game infinitely replayable and ensures the combat doesn't get stale, since there's so many options to go with to become the most efficient Doom Eternal player. I want to mention Under the Mayo for his Doom Eternal videos and how he has talked in depth about the game's combat loop. Go check him out if you're eager to learn more about the deeper meta and the higher game mechanics in the game. Going back to the first level, there are even more collectibles this time around than in Doom 2016. Cheat codes, music records to play in the Fortress of Doom, there are Doom Funko Pops, Sentinel batteries used to power up the ship, Sentinel crystals, the codex entries, mods and runes returning from the last game, and there's even more hidden stuff to find. Oh, and how can I not mention the extra live system that has been implemented in Doom Eternal? Yeah, I'd say that this game is harder than Doom 2016, and the extra live system is quite useful, since if you die with lives in hand, you just get brought back instantly without having to reload at checkpoints. It's very useful, and I love the nod back to Wolfenstein 3D with that game's extra live system. Doom Eternal is extremely arcadey, but it works. The Doomslayer travels to the second level using the Fortress of Doom teleporter, and holy fuck, this is amazing. I don't care if it's contrived, the locations that the player visits in Doom Eternal are visually interesting, and that's what I'm concerned about most. With Doom 2016, the UAC complexes and Hell, although they did look nice, the game felt a bit too similar after a while. Doom Eternal eliminates this issue by having extremely varied maps. The Blood Punch, the Flame Belch, and most importantly, the dash mechanic are all given an introduction in the second level, Exaltia. You start off in this castle area and eventually travel down to Hell, and the imagery on display is stunning. The statues of the Sentinels are larger than life, and the fact that you get to travel across one of them to progress is also incredible. As for the new mechanics, I use the Blood Punch the least, but it's still a welcomed power-up. I've already touched on the Flame Belch, and generally the dash is the most important new asset to the Doomslayer. As opposed to Doom 2016, you can quickly dash twice in the air or on the ground for extra speed, and it's one of the best mobility options that id Software added in the game. Along with the Super Shotgun's meat hook, it is so fun zipping around the arena with the dash, and this blows Doom 2016's movements out of the water. In the early levels, you're learning all of these brand new mechanics, and it might feel a little overwhelming to some. I mean, to be fair, it was for me, but once you get used to everything, it becomes second nature. Additionally, it's not like you aren't having fun along the way. Performing glory kills and blowing up enemies is still very entertaining early on in Doom Eternal, with the Disney-like quality of the animation being a real highlight. That being said, the game isn't good just because of the glory kills, but instead it's due to Doom Eternal's in-depth combat mechanics and attention to detail. I'm so glad that id Software doubled down on making Doom Eternal a thinking man's game, and while there's plenty of mindless killing to be had, I'm also very engaged in the experience. I'm constantly thinking about what gun to use, which grenade type to equip, where to move around the space, etc. The Hell Knight makes a return in the second level, and when you chip away at him using the heavy cannon for example, chunks of his skin and any demon is chipped off, and this is the destructible demon system that id Software implemented. When you damage a monster in Doom 2016, you would see this little shield effect, and it's not really satisfying in the slightest. But now with Doom Eternal, you get to see each demon get torn apart by your weaponry, and it's genius. Let's talk about the platforming and purple sludge in Doom Eternal now, since they are both prominent in the second level, and the platforming specifically runs through the entire game. I don't mind the purple sludge, but it doesn't necessarily engage me either. I would prefer if it wasn't in the game, but I don't hate its existence. I think that's being a little melodramatic. Now with the platforming, I actually really have come to like it. Sure, Doom Eternal celebrates the contrivances of a video game, and adds these out-of-nowhere platforming sections, but I find them to be a nice breather from the regular combat loop. In Doom 2016, you walked from arena to arena for the most part, and there wasn't a whole lot to do in between. In Doom Eternal, this is rectified by more interesting platforming segments, and on top of that, more demon encounters outside of the arenas. Yes, Doom Eternal feels like first-person Super Mario Bros. At points, but it's not like it's implemented badly, and there are even a couple of platforming segments in the original Doom. I mean, look at Doom 2 Map 15 as the prime example, with that long fucking drop you need to make down to the platform. Also, the platforming is something you can improve on with subsequent playthroughs, with the addition of the meat hook. I mean, some of these segments can be bypassed completely, which is great. Of course, nothing can beat the combats, but I don't get the hate for these platforming sections at all. They're fun, and it's a nice change of pace from the standard running and gunning. After you finish Exaltia, the third level is set in a cultist base, and this is where the game starts to take off its training wheels a bit. You have the dash, you have a few guns, and now it'll begin throwing Mancubi at you, as well as a new demon called the Whiplash. She might be one of my favourite new monsters in Doom Eternal, as she is evasive and will do a lot of damage if you're not careful. The Whiplash, similar to the Hell Knights, will make you move around the arena and will make you change what your main target is straight away. As for the level itself, Cultist Base is a sprawling snow map, and it's simply humongous, especially for first-time players. You get the super shotgun in this badass minigame where you take control of a Revenant, and I assume this is a subtle introduction to Doom Eternal's battle mode. I'm not sure, but once you get the super shotgun along with the meat hook, you're basically set. The meat hook is amazing, I've already said this, but I just need to reiterate. The meat hook is so satisfying to pull off. Everything falls into place around this time, and Doom Eternal becomes 10 times better than Doom 2016. To spare you the details, Mars Core, both Necroville parts, and Final Sin are my other favourite Doom Eternal levels. Mars Core is brilliantly designed and has some inventive platforming as you're floating around in space. I love the instructional pop-up to blow a hole into Mars, even though Samuel Hayden directly tells you that you can't. Necroville shows a more traditional side of hell than what we saw in Doom 2016. Much more colourful and vibrant, but still eerie at the same time. As for Final Sin, this is a pretty perfect ending challenge, and even though I don't really love the Icon of Sin boss fights, the rest of the map is fun as fuck. As for the other maps, they're really good, and I can tell a ton of effort was put into them, but those were just my personal favourites. Speaking of the other maps, I did want to talk about Ark Complex and the introduction of the Marauder. Now I know that many people hated this guy when he first popped up in the game, saying that he flew against what Doom Eternal was trying to do, but I can't possibly agree with that. He makes you alter what you're doing on the battlefield, but so does almost every demon in the game. And it's not like he's making you do anything you wouldn't do anyway. The Marauder makes you dance around the arena, look for openings, and then you need to quickly attack when you get the window of opportunity to. So we have movements, knowing the arena, and fast combats. Basically everything that is fun about Doom Eternal to begin with. The Marauder was the perfect addition, and he feels exactly like a demonic Doomslayer, which is why I wish their name was the Doom Hunter, but I digress. Doom Eternal is the culmination of the past 25 years of Doom history. Doom 2016 may have been the best way to reboot the franchise, but Doom Eternal perfected it, and aside from the original, Doom Eternal is the best Doom game ever made. The combat is tightened up and refined to be more complicated and tactical, the enemies look better and are more active than ever, the stages look and feel amazing to go through, the music is excellent across the board, there are plenty of Easter eggs that you can spot, there is strategy about what weapons to use, etc. Doom Eternal is the modern interpretation of Doom I have always wanted, and it's the shining example of how to perfect a game franchise. However, I do have a few complaints before I get out of here. For one, I wish the codex entries had an audiobook function so you can hear them on the go as you're killing demons. Another aspect about the game that I wanted to see explored is, well, more exploration. I hope that in the next Doom game, we see more branching paths, more ways to explore the environment, more practical benefits for exploring, like what the Slayer Gates offered in Doom Eternal with the Unmaker weapon. The locations and levels that id Software have made in Doom Eternal are wonderful and impressive, and I want to explore more of it. That being said, Doom 2016 rebooted the franchise. Doom Eternal perfected the franchise. But what comes after perfection?
For your fight.